So growing up, my mom has repeatedly told me when you were little, like very young, a toddler, early elementary school, you were just so nice. You were so sweet that I was worried about you. Like if you had a piece of cake that you wanted, but someone else wanted it, you would give it to them. You were just so nice, so sweet. I was worried about what the harshness of the world would do to you. And it's interesting that she shares this with me as an adult because although I am still a very kind and sweet person in many ways, I have a firm sense of self, I have a lot of confidence, and I understand who I am and act on it. Um, I know that being kind and really just honestly being nice was one of the things that I got praised and affirmed the most for growing up. Being a nice girl, being a sweet girl. Adults loved it. The adults around me loved it. They thought it was so amazing. But it came with a lot of struggles and challenges. And it really did take me time to find my voice, to find my confidence, to connect with my body and my own internal experiences, because years of niceness and sweetness can really disconnect you. And so I want to dive in today to talk about the good girl archetype, the good girl standard, how it's impacted millennial women in particular, and what are some ways that you can reconnect with your body, your boundaries, and your voice if you find that this is something that you really got socialized and trained into as well. If you're new here, my name is Lauren Ludlow. I am a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed psychotherapist who specializes in somatic therapy, EMDR, and couples work, in particular for clients who find that they're so caught up in all the roles, goals, or patterns that are based on survival mode or trauma that they've lost connection with themselves or the relationships that matter most, and who are ready to build new patterns of ease, alignment, and deep, authentic connection. And today I want to talk about the good girl archetype. And even though I'm focusing on millennial women, I know that this is not just an archetype. This is not just a standard that impacts millennial women. Women who are part of Gen Z, women who are part of Gen X, women who are part of the baby boomer generation, all have different versions, or in some ways similar versions of this archetype that have impacted them. So even though I'm speaking to the experience of millennial women, if you identify as a woman who's a part of another or different generation, there's probably going to be a lot in here that's relevant to you as well. So it's very rare that any woman has one moment where someone sat them down and said, this is what it means to be a good girl, and this is how you have to behave and act, and defined this good girl standard or good girl archetype for them just in one moment, and then they ran with it. But the good girl archetype is something that we really absorb over time through lots and lots of small, medium, and large messages. Things that sound like, well, aren't you so sweet? Oh, and you should be kind and sweet. Do not make trouble for others. Don't rock the boat. Smile more. Be grateful. Ooh, you're being a little too loud right now. You gotta watch your volume. Don't be too emotional. Don't be a burden. Basically, be good. And all of these messages come together over time to create this standard or this archetype where we are led to believe that in order to be worthy, in order to be safe, in order to be cared for, in order to be loved and esteemed, we must live up to this standard. And it's often passed down to us like some kind of unwanted, not so great family heirloom. The people around us, parents, aunts, uncles, other family members who are well intentioned and want us to go on to lead productive and wonderful lives, don't want us to be spoiled or don't want us to be bratty, are sometimes the first communicators of these messages to women from the time that you're very young. And this is not to say that being kind, being on the sweet side of things, having a personality that's positive are bad things. Those are not not bad things if that is your way of being, if that's the natural way that you show up in the world or the way that you choose to show up in the world. What makes the good girl archetype or the good girl standard damaging is that it communicates to women that you must be accommodating, agreeable, and nice in order to be of value and often in order to be safe. These are the standards that you must fit into in order to belong and in order to have the security that comes with belonging. The good girl archetype is also deeply connected with self-abandonment. If being nice, agreeable, and accommodating are at the very top of the priority list, guess what must fall down the priority list? Connecting with what you want, connecting with what you need, connecting with your own perspectives, your own opinion, your own voice, and actions that align with your values. And so it's deeply intertwined with this self-abandonment, disconnection from self, and oftentimes results in young girls not even truly getting to know themselves. I can't tell you how many times I have clients who are women come into my practice and we'll start just by trying to notice sensations in the body. Hey, when you think of that, what do you notice going on in your body? And it is so challenging for them to even sense what's going on inside because for their whole lives, their focus has been on the outside. What do other people need of me? What role am I meant to be fulfilling? How can I be useful or acceptable in this moment? And so almost no energy or intention has gone into learning what's going on inside of me. Because the good girl archetype says that being agreeable and kind and sweet and nice is what makes women valuable, what makes them important, what they are supposed to do, it is the right thing to do, then conforming to this archetype or standard becomes a survival or a safety strategy because young women, young girls, and then full grown women are often punished in various ways for not living up to the standard. This can be especially true for women who are part of communities that have been marginalized. So if you are not just a girl or a woman who is living with this standard and who will receive various forms of social or other punishments if you don't conform to the standard. But on top of that, you are a Black woman. You are a woman who is part of the BIPOC community. You are a woman living with a disability. You are a trans woman. You are a woman over 50. There becomes this additional survival pressure to live up to this archetype and this standard because the punishments are often even worse for these communities when they don't fit the good girl archetype. And punishment for not meeting this archetype or this standard can come in many, many forms. It can come in the form of harsh criticism, rejection, getting excluded, not getting promotions at work or having your work recognized. It can come in the form of physical violence. It can come in the form of emotional violence. It can come in so many different forms. And these punishments are so real that a lot of women from very early on don't voluntarily choose to live into these things, but instead choose to live into them as a way of surviving. It becomes an automatic nervous system response to say, okay, what does it mean to be agreeable, to be nice in this moment? Because I want to survive. I want to make it. I want to be physically safe. I want to be emotionally safe. I want to first and foremost protect myself. So the good girl persona is less choice and more armor that helps girls and women to make it through the day as safely as possible. And these patterns get really, really deeply rooted into the nervous system to where it becomes automatic. It doesn't even seem like an option or a choice not to be agreeable, not to be nice, not to be sweet. And I say all this to remove some shame or some pathologizing, if you're someone who feels really, really stuck in this persona or really, really stuck in this standard, and logically you know you don't want to live that way, but it feels really, really hard to get out. It feels really, really challenging to consider making any choices that go against agreeability and niceness because it's the equivalent of taking off armor, and your nervous system is left asking, well, how am I supposed to protect myself instead? So whenever we're going to make a choice or make a change that might be risky, it's really important to know why it's worth it to even consider making this choice or this change. Why is it even worth it to consider releasing or doing a little bit of freeing from the good girl persona, the good girl standard? And I would say one of the number one reasons that it's important is just because of the level of disconnection that this persona or this standard creates. It creates disconnection between you and your body. Literally, this physical signals that go on inside of you that let you know how you're feeling, how you're doing, how your health is, those physical cues, that inner wisdom that helps you to make better choices about relationships and jobs and what's aligned for you. That disconnection from the body, that disembodiment is such a heavy price to pay. And there are so many things that come along with it that ultimately, at some point, most folks, most women look up and say, I'm tired. I've lost myself. I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know how to find my way back. That can be a strong motivator for wanting to release the good girl persona. Another motivator for finding some freedom from the good girl persona is the impact of chronic long-term stress and anxiety on the mind and body. This persona is a heavy, heavy burden to carry. It often requires you to say things or do things or act in ways that are not only not in your best interest, but aren't in alignment with your true self. To say things you don't really think, to do things that you really don't want to be doing, to act in ways that are contrary to your needs. And that heavy burden takes a constant day in, day out toll of stress on your nervous system that results in not only a lot of emotional and mental health issues, but so many physical health issues as well. And the last and the most important reason is your inherent deservingness and worthiness. You are worth living a life that is more aligned with your values, your desires, and your dreams. You deserve that. And this good girl persona is such a high barrier to moving in that direction. And literally, I mean, there's nothing else to say. Just you, by virtue of being you, being alive, drawing breath, you deserve a life that is moving in the direction of your dreams, your desires, your values, you being able to make more intentional choices. I truly believe that, and that is one of the strongest reasons to consider or explore what it might look like to release some of this persona, to release some of this way of being. So practically speaking, what can this look like? As a somatic therapist, I know that one of the most important things when we're considering shifting a pattern that has been protective for us is to consider what can keep us safe instead. It's really hard for our nervous system, for our minds, to let go of patterns like this good girl persona if the nervous system is saying, now you're trying to put me in danger. No way, I'm not going to do that. And so when it comes to the good girl persona and all the ways that it keeps you safe, number one, I think it's important to remember you still can choose to act in ways that are accommodating, that are agreeable, and that are nice in particular situations where it would put you in danger or threat not to act in those ways. You can save the good girl persona as a tool for specific moments where if it would put you in some sort of imminent danger or some sort of very real danger to not be agreeable and accommodating and all these sorts of things, it still gets to be a tool in your tool belt. Our desire is that it's just not your way of being and your way of living, and it's a tool that is reserved for when you really need it. So we're not totally getting rid of the armor. We're just making it an optional tool for certain moments because, of course, your safety really, really matters. But if we don't want this to be your constant way or your consistent way of being anymore, I think it's important to consider, do there need to be some changes in the spaces, environments, and relationships that you operate in? If you're consistently feeling like I have to live into this good girl way of being or else everything will become catastrophic and threatening, well then, yeah, we need to look at making some changes in your environments, in your relationships, and the places and spaces that you're in. This might look like evaluating your work or your job space. If that's a place where you're constantly having to show up as the good girl, or else there will be catastrophic consequences, maybe we need to make a shift there. If there are relationships where you're constantly being pressured to show up in this way, maybe we need to establish some more distance, establish some more boundaries, or sometimes even eliminate or get rid of those connections at the most extreme if you're feeling like the only way for me to be safe and secure in this relationship is to show up as amiable, agreeable, nice, and good all the time. So really making an intentional inventory of what are the spaces, the places, and the people that bring up this good girl persona most in me. You could literally reflect and list it out. Where are the places, the spaces, the people, the situations where I feel most pressured to be the good girl, where I'm most afraid of what would happen if I stopped being the good girl, and then consider what would it take to maybe change those things, change those environments, shift those relationships, or find other ways of keeping yourself safe, right? So doing that kind of evaluation, it lets your nervous system know, hey, I can explore this and still consider my sense of safety and security. And that often makes it so that your nervous system won't be battling you, your survival mind won't be playing tug of war with you. If you can kind of reassure yourself, go back to that list and say, hey, I'm exploring changing my work environment. Hey, I'm going to set some more boundaries in this relationship. Hey, I'm going to seek to create more friendships where people support me in showing up as who I am instead of just agreeable and amiable. Hey, I'm going to have a conversation with this person and let them know, hey, I've been feeling pressured to show up in these ways in our relationship and I'd really like to change that. You can go back to that list. You can give yourself that reassurance that I still can use the good girl persona as a tool on occasion when I really need it to stay secure and safe. And I'm allowed to make these changes safely over time. If you can give yourself those reminders, give yourself that reassurance, you'll be able to explore these changes, hopefully with a lot less resistance coming from inside. So once you've established those things around safety and security, you've addressed the needs of the survival mind and the survival patterns of your nervous system, one of the ways you can start to reconnect, to reclaim the connection that maybe you lost through living into this persona, this good girl persona for so long, is engaging in somatic work. And one of the things that can be really powerful in terms of starting is begin by noticing what you genuinely enjoy, what brings you pleasure, what connects you with a sense of goodness and well-being in your life, and what shows up in the body when you're engaged with those things. So start by, taking a day, taking a week, doing a reflection at the end of each day to ask yourself, what places, what spaces, what moments, what experiences, what people connected me with a sense of well-being or brought me pleasure today. See if you can notice it in the moment when those things are actually happening. So maybe it is the first sip of tea or coffee in the morning, or the taste of the delicious lunch you prepared for yourself, or it is the feeling of an embrace from a friend or from a loved one or your partner, or it is a view outside of your window, or the scenery passing by as you are riding on the bus or the train. Maybe it is the feeling of slipping your feet into warm socks that are fresh out of the dryer. Really see if you can notice moments that connect you with pleasure and well-being. And when those moments come up, scan your body, starting from your head, scanning the attention downward through your toes, and see if you can start to notice What's going on inside the body? What sort of sensations do you notice? Stillness, tingle, buzz, relaxation, tension. What do you notice going on inside the body? At first, it might be challenging to detect your body's signals, and that is okay. It's a practice. It is allowed to evolve. Maybe you have been living in a state of disconnection where you're so focused on being good and meeting those needs and expectations that you haven't had the time and space to do this. So expect it to take some time. And oftentimes you'll be able to start off by noticing stronger sensations, and it'll be really hard to detect the more subtle ones. But just continually give yourself some weeks to notice what's connecting you with well-being or pleasure, and then scan the body and notice what's going on inside. Over time, this sort of somatic work can help to rebuild the bridge between your mind and your body. And for women who have been living with this good girl persona for years and decades, it can be an incredibly restorative and an incredibly affirming experience when you can start to notice what's going on inside of your body. Again, read those signals, read those cues, learn what your nervous system is saying to you, and start to make more aligned, more intentional decisions based off of that additional information. Another step that you can take is to start setting, establishing, and maintaining boundaries in your life. Now, the topic of boundaries is a nuanced and detailed one, so I recommend doing some reading, doing some information gathering. A great place to start is the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace. I'll include a link to it in the description. But boundaries are really not about pushing people away. Boundaries are about establishing some guidelines and some parameters for sustainable, healthy, mutual interactions in your relationships. Oftentimes, if you've been living with this good girl persona, this good girl myth, a lot of your relationships will be centered around you doing for, pleasing, or accommodating other people. And ultimately, if that's what a relationship is built on, that connection is not mutual. The person probably isn't getting to know or see glimpses of the true you. Those relationships don't tend to be as sustainable, and there can be a lot of resentment that builds up inside of them. And they tend not to be great for the other person because, again, they're not genuinely and truly connecting with you. So boundaries are a way of saying, I want to connect with you. I want to be in connection with you. And in order for that to be healthy, to be sustainable, to be doable over time, and to involve you being able to show up with true pieces of yourself and me being able to do the same, these are some guidelines I need to establish around how I'm willing to show up and how I'm not willing to show up. So with boundaries, we're actually wanting to create good and sustainable and often deeper connections. At an extreme, a boundary can look like pushing someone away in terms of not contacting them or not interacting with them, because a boundary can sound like, hey, I'm not willing to do phone calls with you or do interactions with you when you start to yell and criticize and berate me, right? If we're having a phone call or we're having an interaction and you do that, I'm going to hang up the phone and to take some time of not talking to you. And I'm going to ask you and check in with you and say, are you willing to have a conversation where we agree not to yell and criticize and berate each other before the next time I do a phone call, right? Those are the steps I'm going to choose to take. And sometimes that does mean involving distancing, right? Like, oh, you might not be able to talk to that person as often or as much. Conversations might be shorter because you've decided how you are and aren't willing to show up. But ultimately, distancing is not the goal of boundaries. In the situation that I described, the point of the boundary would be really to establish communication that is clearer, kinder, and better for both people. But that involves distance in maybe that particular scenario. But again, I urge you to do more exploration around boundaries, do some more reading, listen to some podcasts, because again, this topic could be its whole own series of videos. But it's just a very key, very important part of what it would take to free, to liberate the good girl inside. Last One additional way that I want to mention of starting to free or liberate yourself from that good girl persona is to start committing to taking daily actions that are in the direction of that freedom. So basically, try to do something every single day that aligns with your values, your needs, the direction that you're wanting your life to move in. This can be as straightforward as making a list of what are the things that I've been wanting to do that I've been postponing? What are my needs that have been going unmet that I really want to attend to? What are moments that I find myself silencing myself or my voice that I want to practice raising my voice? Get really practical here. Maybe you've been wanting to do something like try that ice cream shop down the street and you've just been postponing it for no reason, or because you're busy accommodating other people, or you've been told that you need a reason or an excuse to go get ice cream. Put that on your list and go get ice cream from that ice cream shop. Maybe you have needs, like you've been needing to set up some medical appointments with a trusted healthcare professional, or maybe you've been needing to attend to something like getting your hair cut, right? Or you have other needs that have really been falling by the wayside. List those needs out, put them in your calendar, make some phone calls and get the stuff scheduled so you know when you're going to get it done. Maybe one of your desires has been, I want to go to a really nice park, I want to go to a really nice beach, but the good girl persona has kind of kept you trapped in. That energy needs to go into being nice, being kind, or accommodating other people. And so I can't do inconvenient stuff for myself. Schedule or do spontaneously the inconvenient thing. Take some time off of work if you have it and go to the beach, go to the park, go to that place that's not convenient to get to that you've been wanting to get to. And then when it comes to the thing of silencing yourself or raising your voice, maybe you find that there are certain personal relationships where there are things that have gone unspoken. There are times at work when you have not proposed an idea or expressed dissent on something or advocated for yourself. Make a list of those things and start having those conversations, maybe starting with the ones that seem least intimidating all the way up to the ones that seem most intimidating. When it comes to doing these things that might be scary and uncomfortable, this is where our self-soothing and nervous system regulation steps can become really, really important. So maybe you're wanting to raise your voice in the form of politics or community organizing. And for the first time, you want to call your senator or your community representative, or you want to attend a rally. And it's something scary to do because it's different. Take some time to engage in some self-soothing practices before. Do the thing that is frightening. Take some time to engage in some self-soothing practices afterwards so that your nervous system can lay down some patterns and can learn, oh, these things are uncomfortable. They're different. They felt a little scary, but I am okay ultimately. I am good. This was not unsafe, unsafe, unsafe like I thought it was. Being able to use those self-soothing practices before and after challenges can be a really powerful way of freeing the good girl by building up new patterns in your nervous system. I have in the description below a link to some somatic practices for soothing that can be helpful if you're still building your toolbox. But these are some ways to just begin exploring what it means to free, to liberate the good girl, and to free yourself to be able to live in a way that's more intentional and aligned. And just a reminder, you don't have to do this work of reclaiming, rediscovering, and reconnecting alone. Whether it is connecting with a friend or a loved one that you trust and letting them know, this is the journey that I'm on and I need your support, so that you have someone to talk to or to turn to. Engaging with a community that is doing the same type of work, or choosing into some therapy. Therapy can be a really powerful place for learning, exploring, and understanding your patterns, reprocessing some of the traumas and adverse experiences that are making those patterns stick, and having compassionate accountability and guidance for building up new patterns. Thanks for exploring this subject along with me today. And if you want more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.